Hello and welcome to Monster Island Radio. I'm Ben, and as usual, we also have
Graham. Hello.
Hello. So, today we're talking about the new one, Godzilla vs. Kong. So this was a long time coming.
For more reasons than one.
Yes. Were you excited for this?
I was actually, not least of all because I haven't seen a new movie for a long time. But yeah, they've been getting steadily better in some regards. I think Kong Skull Island was my favourite, as we mentioned in the previous podcast, of the MonsterVerse ones.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of faith from the trailer that they might, have something with this one, that they've kind of learned from past mistakes and they're going to enhance the things that have been good about the previous ones as well. So yeah, I was very optimistic.
Yeah, they have been getting better as they've gone on. So obviously learning from the mistakes.
So you were hyped as well, I assume.
I was, yeah, absolutely. Godzilla vs. Kong, directed by Adam Wingard. So this is actually a real departure for him because he's better known for his horror stuff.
Right.
I've not seen all of them, but one in particular I liked was You're Next. And it's kind of, low budget, indie-ish horror. So like when I saw his name was attached, I was like, oh, that's weird. Like I couldn't really make the translation from that kind of small project to the bigger one in my head.
That's kind of the path that Gareth Edwards took, though.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's just have a recap of this film. Oh yeah, this is all full of spoilers, by the way. So
full
anyone
spoiler
listening,
review. So watch the movie first, indulge in discussion after.
Yeah, exactly. This film takes place 5 years after the events of King of the Monsters. And it kind of follows two main threads. So first up, we see that Kong is being monitored in isolation on Skull Island in this giant dome by Monarch, alongside Dr. Eileen Andrews and her adoptive Iwi daughter, Gia. But he's been growing more irritable in isolation.
Because he knows he's in isolation.
Exactly.
And he doesn't like it.
Yeah. And they did that.
As we've all come to learn.
Yes, exactly. And then elsewhere in Pensacola, Florida, at the Apex Cybernetics facility, we see employee Bernie Hayes doing some investigation into Apex's secret projects. And he's the host of a Titan conspiracy podcast called Titan Truth.
He's a bit of a crackpot, but the twist is like he's not quite so. His conspiracy theories are not so far flung, sort of thing.
Exactly. He wants to get the word out about some shady goings on there. I wonder how many other podcasts are going to pop up called the Titan Truth Podcast now. Probably a few.
I'm sure that the people at Warner Brothers had to scrape the internet to make sure that their title of their fake podcast was not too close to any real Godzilla podcasts that might be out there.
I heard they wanted to go with Monster Island Radio to begin with, but...
And you didn't take the check.
No.
Our grievances about that will remain off air.
So, during Bernie's investigations, Godzilla shows up at the facility and attacks it, leading Bernie to think that the Apex project must be related to Godzilla's seemingly unprovoked attack. And then Maddie Russell from King of the Monsters, Millie Bobby Brown character, and her friend Josh, they track down Bernie as Maddie listens to his podcasts and also thinks something is up and thinks they're related. So they, team up and do some digging as well. And then the stories kind of start to converge because Apex wants to harness an energy source in the Hollow Earth. So this is all about, we're coming back to that Hollow Earth theory.
Often teased now, we're just like, it's a thing. Yeah,
balls to the wall. This is it. Yeah. They want to harness the energy source down in the Hollow Earth to stop Godzilla's attacks. And they were not exactly clear how, but we find that out soon.
Yeah.
And then Apex enlists the help of Fauna Monarch Hollow Earth theorist Nathan Lind to get them down there. And Lin proposes to Dr. Andrews that Kong will be able to guide them down to the Hollow Earth, as that's where all the Titans originate. And they think, instinct will kick in and he can take them down there. So they agree and they start shipping Kong off to one of the entry points in Antarctica. Meanwhile, Maddie, Bernie, and Josh sneak into Apex and end up stuck on a secret shipping route to Hong Kong, where they come across a secret project that Bernie had suspected, and it turns out to be
Mechagodzilla.
Yeah,
we saw in the trailer.
Yeah, yeah. That would have been such a good reveal. I mean, obviously everyone knew for a long time because of the merchandising and stuff like that, and then the teasers.
Yeah,
but yeah. And here we see that it's being controlled by Ren Sarazawa, which is Ishiro Sarazawa's son. The Ken Watanabe character from the previous films.
Which you wouldn't know unless you went on IMDb and looked at the character's name.
They do say his name once.
But still, it's not like...
It's not obvious.
Yeah.
But anyway, and he's using a synaptic uplink through the remaining head of King Ghidorah from King of the Monsters. So they're using it as a sort of telepathic
sort of system.
Yeah, it's like a telepathic Jaeger type thing, like from Pacific Rim.
It's not explained why that's necessary, other than that it's like a fun thing for the movie, and it's just so what, really?
Just for the fun of it.
Charles Dance's nowhere to be seen, by the way.
We'll get into this. And this is where we learn that Apex needed the Hollow Earth energy to juice up the Mechagodzilla, so they can, overpower the Titans.
It's like basically they want to provoke Godzilla so they can destroy Godzilla with Mechagodzilla, and then...
I don't think they're provoking him. They're just building this Titan because they want to overpower all of the Titans.
Why?
We'll
get into it.
Okay, we'll get into that. That comes later. Anyway, and this is why Godzilla was attacking Apex to begin with. He sensed this, either the Ghidorah head or the fact something was up, Yeah. So after Lind and Andrews managed to get Kong back into the Hollow Earth entry point, he guides them through to the core, and we see this whole entire ecosystem down in the Hollow Earth. And then, Kong goes to what was the throne room of his ancestors, and that's where we see Kongs had ruled down there and must have ousted Godzilla's race in an ancient war, as evidenced by the the axe with the dorsal plates on it that's stuck in the Godzilla skeleton head. Skeleton head. Skull. That's the other word for a skeleton head, right?
The head of a skeleton.
Yes. But yeah, this dorsal plate, it activates the power source down there, which Apex then managed to harness. And then at this time, Godzilla senses Kong is down in the Hollow Earth and blasts a hole straight through the Earth's surface down to the core with his atomic breath.
He's like, come up here and fight me like a man.
Yes, exactly. Then Kong jumps through the whole way to the surface, and then they fight in Hong Kong. And then this is where Apex managed to power up Mechagodzilla because they've harnessed that power. But it goes wrong, and basically they just juiced up Ghidorah's consciousness, and it kills Ren. At least I think he's dead.
Yeah,
100%. And
gets fried up, didn't he?
Yes. So this King Ghidorah consciousness takes over Mechagodzilla, and then manages to overwhelm Godzilla. Oh, I forgot to point out, Kong's unconscious at this point after their fight. So anyway, Lind manages to defibrillate Kong with the heave vehicle that they used to go down in the Hollow Earth and bring Kong back. So they team up, take out Mechagodzilla, with Kong delivering the final blow. And then we end with Kong living in a new Monarch outpost down in the Hollow Earth. So yeah, a lot of stuff happened. So here in the UK, we didn't get a cinema release, straight to video on demand instead. I mean, it's like that in a lot of countries.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm an advocate for films on TV anyway, because first of all, I don't like going outside. Second of all, I think all films should be able to translate to a smaller screen, regardless, and have, the same, if not similar impact. But in this instance, because of where I live, I had the noise of these delivery trucks right outside my window for the entire film. Well, except for the last 10 minutes, very distracting.
So you're seeing the detriment, perhaps, of your preference in some way.
Yeah, I mean, if I lived somewhere where there wasn't, big metal sheets hitting the ground outside my window, probably wouldn't be so
enjoy
bad.
The movies more. But that's the thing, isn't it? Having a dedicated room where you can watch movies is not a privilege everybody has in their own home, and being able to go to the cinema. Yeah. To reflect on your point, I think movies in cinemas is always a much more special experience than watching them at home. I think this movie in particular was made for a big screen. It does work on television. Granted, my TV is fairly large, to be honest, so I think if you watched it on a laptop or a smaller screen, you might not actually get the full impact of it. So it's a shame people don't have that option to see it in the cinema. And I think that, it's a shame for the people who've made it that it's missed out on that chance in some countries. But I have heard that worldwide, or maybe it was just in the States, I can't remember what I saw, but it's got the biggest opening since...
in China.
Was it?
I think it's
the
China.
Biggest cinema opening for a film since all of the pandemic, stuff started. So, that's not bad.
Yes, it's done well.
I would have loved to have seen it on the big screen.
Yeah, I'm hoping there might be like a limited run once we're all allowed outside again.
I expect a lot of movies like, Tenet and some of these superhero movies that have, they'll have like, here's a month or a couple of weeks where you can see it, and they'll draw some cash out of that.
Yeah, probably. But I still really enjoyed it despite the distractions outside. It was still a great film. So, I suppose let's get into it. So this story, I suppose we had kind of two teams of characters, kind of similar to Skull Island in a way, where you kind of got two teams.
Moving to a similar destination.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
So you have like on Team Godzilla, I suppose. You had the ragtag bunch, with Maddie, Bernie, and Josh, who I initially thought were going to be like the Storm Chaser style characters in Godzilla 2000, the Godzilla Prediction Network.
The van that they take has Storm Chaser stuff on it.
Exactly. So I thought they were going for that thing.
Maybe that was a reference to 2000.
I did wonder that because that's the first thing that popped into my mind. But then, I was wondering if maybe it was just meant to be like the Mystery Machine. It was a bit Scooby-Doo.
Maybe.
But yeah, something like that. So yeah, you had Bernie, Maddie, and Josh. They're investigating the cause of the attack. I really enjoyed my time with them. It was nice and lighthearted, and it gave some levity to the proceedings. And it's nice to have a returning character as well of Maddie.
I guess so.
I don't know what you thought of these guys. I mean, because I spoke to some other people, and they were like, could have done without that kind of sense of humor, but I think it needed that personally.
I think it fits. I mean, it's very Marvel adjacent, and I think that the sense of humor in the Marvel movies is by no means unique, but it does have a very particular style, and you can see it being emulated very easily, especially when it's just similar but not quite there. And the thing I mean by that is that I didn't find these characters or their comic antics irritating, but I wasn't like laughing either. It was just like, oh yeah, this is humorous, but not like laugh out loud funny. So I guess you could have treated it with more seriousness, but like that's not the kind of movie. I know with 2014, like they set up a very grounded universe. The idea of Godzilla blasting a hole to the center of the earth would not have worked in that film.
No.
They've done quite a nice job actually of gradually twisting into a more science fiction comic book style. So yeah, I think you need characters like that. Who are, taking it a bit more easy. And I think it worked, actually. Like I said during your synopsis, Bernie's character comes across as a very eccentric, irritating person. But the fact that what he's saying is actually completely accurate and he's onto something makes him quite likable, even though he's really kind of over the top. So I liked the characters, I think the dynamic and having... the Josh character there, who's like completely out of his element, lets the audience kind of put themselves in the movie to some degree. Yeah. Especially when, Maddie and Bernie are just giving endless exposition, really. You have the character there who's just like, what are you talking about? Why are you just treating this like it's not a big deal?
Yeah,
so kind of, it evened out. On the other hand, I felt like the characters who were with Kong
The Apex gang.
They had less personality, and I'm not, I don't mind, because I think overall the stars of the movies, more so than ever, were Kong and Godzilla, which is how it should be. And we got so much time with them. They really felt more like characters than I think in any previous movie, even Skull Island. But still, I don't think they gave the actors quite as much nuance. It's okay for Millie Bobby Brown and like Bernie, these actors who are playing comical characters or characters who've been in a film already and have a bit of a foundation. But like Rebecca Hall is a really good actress, and they gave her a part in this movie, which she seems to be enjoying herself, and I think she does a good job of carrying the material. But there wasn't much depth there, and I get that this film isn't about human depth. There isn't really depth to it in any way. There's not even like a parable or an allegory here at all for anything, which is unusual for Godzilla movies in some regards. But like, it worked because they were so focused on that match, between Godzilla and Kong. So I think that being the focus was perfect, really.
Yeah, definitely. I did find them a bit
flat.
Flat. I don't want to say dull, because it's not accurate, but yeah, a bit flat. Just, they're there to facilitate what's going on, really.
Yeah. And what's the little girl's name? Was it
Gia?
Yeah, like Gia's really good. Like, it's a really nice idea. Like, you'll have this deaf character, a dynamic they haven't had before between like a kaiju and a human, at least from what I've seen. So I think like there was stuff there. It just wasn't quite as textured as the other characters in the film.
Yeah, it's kind of like a mixture of good guys and bad guys in a way. I mean, Apex are kind of the big bad for this. And you had, was it Walt's daughter, Maya?
The nasty lady, basically.
Yeah, the nasty lady was a bit, I don't know, I wasn't really feeling it, because I didn't really connect with, except for Gia and Dr. Andrews. The rest of them could have taken or left them, really.
I quite liked it, though.
I know you're not supposed to empathize with them, really, but it didn't really feel like much of a threat either.
No, that's
when they got down to the Hollow Earth, it's kind of like, oh, we're bad. Okay. I don't know. It just didn't quite work, in my opinion.
I didn't think it was no great success in that way, but I did like the way they basically signposted very early on. What's this character? She's the daughter of the main villain. She turns up, with Kong because she's going to keep an eye on, on the proceedings and steal the material from the Hollow Earth ultimately. And they basically tell you as soon as she comes on screen, like, this character's gonna get killed later on. And it's gonna be a good laugh. So just get used to not liking her, so that when she eventually gets crushed by Kong, it's satisfying. And that's what these films really are. Is like, it's just setup and payoff for like very superficial but very enjoyably executed stuff like that. And I think that it was really okay. Maybe having a villain with some more depth would have been good and certainly possible, but it's just kind of fun. Like, she's a bit unpleasant. She gets killed. Thumbs up. Like, as a nice little A to B piece of the film, I didn't mind it so much. In fact, they did play a little bit with her because she was nasty when she first turned up. When Gia almost drowns during the first Kong Godzilla fight, she sort of like coddles her a little bit when they get her out of that door, and it makes you feel like, oh yeah, she's got like a little bit.
She is a human.
Exactly. So I was like, oh, maybe she's not all bad. But then, she had like this superficial like turn to the dark side, and then quickly died. But I enjoyed it because I think that the film sort of knows, like, it's like when you watch a slasher movie and they put a bunch of teenagers in, and you're like, some of these are going to die, and they're just here. And Skull Island is like that. There's so many army guys in Skull Island. It's just like, a lot of them are just here to be killed off. And I think it's fine,
Yeah. The Apex storyline was kind of interesting because in terms of what happened at the end of King of the Monsters, Alan Jonah bought that Ghidorah head and then presumably sold it or donated it to Apex, which is weird.
Or they stole it from him, or
this is the thing, right? Yeah. They set it up that he bought it.
Yes.
And then Apex end up with it.
Yeah.
So that's weird because, they're trying to create a Titan that could fight against other Titans, which is exactly what Jonah wouldn't have wanted.
No.
He would let Titans rule. So, and he doesn't seem like the sort of guy that would change his mind either. So we can only speculate as to how Apex got it. And that kind of bugged me, because why have Alan Jonah buy it specifically at the end for then, to not actually go anywhere with that particular thread? It didn't really make sense. Like, Apex have it now. Why?
Well, this is the bugbear of the entire Monsterverse that we've talked about before, and I discussed with people after watching this movie as well, that there is no cause and effect between these
Not really.
movies. Like I said, Brie Larson's character in Skull Island, she takes a bunch of photographs of things going on. You would think those photographs would have an impact on the overall story, and they don't. And similarly, like, a city gets destroyed, like Hong Kong gets leveled in this movie. If they make another Monsterverse movie, they are 100% never going to mention the fallout from that. It's not important. So there's no knock-on effect, and that's why it hasn't, for all the peaks and valleys in this series, it hasn't really come together as a film series in some ways, because they expect you so much that people will just watch Godzilla vs. Kong having not seen anything else. That they play it like you can just watch it, which is good. You could just sit down and watch this one, no problem. But if you're looking to have a franchise, you kind of want people to have a payoff from previous films, and it never ever has done that. So I wasn't even disappointed by that, unlike you, because I wasn't expecting them to ever do anything with it. Honestly, I thought that if they were going to bring back Ghidorah's head, it wouldn't be until a potential 5th movie after this. So the fact that it was in this actually surprised me a little bit, which is silly, because they've done the Ghidorah becomes Mechagodzilla thing before it in the previous Japanese Godzilla movies, so it has a place, But yeah, it's just a typical thing for Monsterverse for them to be like, oh yeah, we set up this thing, or not, and yeah, it's a shame, but I've come to get used to it, and it's stopped bothering me, honestly.
Well, I haven't.
Yeah. It's a valid criticism, but yeah, not one I share.
I really shouldn't take it too seriously. I mean, this movie in particular, the whole thing is just so off the wall. Anyway,
in the best possible way.
In the best way, exactly.
But I don't think you're wrong to criticize it, because it takes itself just seriously enough. It's a very fine line, I think. And they walk it very, very well, which isn't to say they couldn't do better, though. Like, that maybe they said to Charles Dance, do you want to come back for another one? And he was just like, no.
Yeah, I've already done my bit. I'm good. I mean, they did plan to have Dr. Chen back, one of the Shobijin twins from King of the Monsters.
I was just, yeah.
It never came to be. And it's
after watching it, I realised they hadn't done the Shobijin twins, and I thought, why?
Yeah, because I guess they just wanted to refine it, so it's just Kong, Godzilla, and that's it. Cut out any extra stuff.
Yeah, and if Mothra's not going to turn up anyway, it's like, well.
Yeah, exactly. But again, this is the sort of thing that bugs me, is they have the tease of the Mothra egg in the King of the Monsters credits, and Chen was going to be in it again, and it's like, oh, we're looking forward to that, but then doesn't happen. I mean, it's a smart choice to keep it straightforward, but I just don't like teasers that don't really go anywhere. It feels like I'm watching Lost when that happens.
Traditionally, though, they always go Mothra like butterfly form, and then Mothra larvae form, and they always have a interim period where she's not fully formed, and maybe they were like, oh, well, we don't want to just show like a larva Mothra in this film, so we'll just skip it and just go back to full form Mothra next time, maybe, if they get to do more. Because I think, yeah, like, if they're not going to show her, or they're only going to show her in like some diminished role, then it's just wasted screen time. And I think that was the benefit of this movie, is that although the story was pretty paper thin, to say the least, they used their screen time very, very well just to focus on the real stars like Kong and Godzilla.
Yeah. So, I think maybe that was a lesson learnt from Skull Island as well, like with San Lin and Houston Brooks.
Maybe
they barely had any lines in those movies, so like they could have not existed, and it wouldn't have made any difference to that film. So I think they've probably learned, we're not just going to have this character only say a couple of lines again, because it's not really contributing anything substantial to the story we want to tell, other than the fact that we just want her in there. So let's just cut it.
Yeah, and I think that it plays on so many levels, that there's a production element to it of filming and casting and paying people to make scenes that aren't worth it, and then also for the audience watching something, when it doesn't go anywhere, it's like, well, why have that?
They still had some of those problems, though, I think, with not fleshing out the characters because, as we kind of touched on briefly at the start, you had Ren Serizawa, who I assumed when he popped up that he was going to follow in his father's footsteps. And I had that idea in my head the whole way through until his death, essentially. I was like, oh, he's must be a good guy, right? But he's kind of gone rogue. And I feel like if you're going to have this character in here doing that, you should have leaned into that a little bit more.
There's nothing there, though. It's almost like that's the superficial thing where it's like, oh,
yeah, it's like this character's related to that character, remember? And it's like, well, come on.
And there's nothing more than that. It's just a name.
Yeah, I mean, just go with it if you're going to do it. Yeah, and I mean, this is just a personal opinion here on this. With Lind, for example, we could have used already established characters like Brooks for this purpose, because his purpose was to, when Walt Simmons came to him, he was like, oh, your Hollow Earth theory is fascinating. And it's like, that's not your theory. And there's been 2 other films where they discussed that it's Houston Brooks' theory. But he doesn't even show up. And I don't get that. So it seemed like that role could have been filled by either Houston Brooks or from the comics, like in Skull Island, Birth of Kong, by his son, Aaron. That would have fit that role if you wanted a younger character to do it, for example. And
he could have been like, oh, my father died, rather than my brother died, which is what they end up saying. Yes,
exactly. So, like that guy's the Hollow Earth theorist, not Lind. They should be taking him down there. And the cynical part of me thinks that it's just so they could have a white male lead opposite a white female lead.
Would like to think not. And I didn't see this fella. Even in the trailer, I didn't see that character as far as I can recall, because they didn't really focus on it. As far as I was aware, the star of the movie, from a human perspective,
was Andrews.
It's going to be Rebecca Hall, and Millie Bobby Brown. But like you, when I saw Rebecca Hall was in it, as Andrews, I was like, well, why are they doing a new character? Haven't we got like anybody else who we've previously seen? But to be fair, in King of Monsters, they kill off by most, they kill off Serizawa and they kill off Dr. Graham, and so they can't come back. And I think it's the thing of like Warner Brothers MonsterVerse producers have not either taken the initiative or have the money to spend to sign on actors indefinitely in a Marvel Disney-esque way, let's say, where they can be like, oh, will you just take a paycheck to come back indefinitely for this series?
Yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, it's on a character level. Why a new character when have someone actually related to the Hollow Earth theory? Just something there rather than kind of ignoring the fact that all existed. And this is his theory now.
It would give you a stronger connection to those characters and make it feel like a more connected series. But I just haven't taken that route either on a production level or on a narrative level. And like I said before, like coming into this as the 4th movie, seeing from Skull Island where they were like, oh, it's set in the 70s and we've got Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson and John Goodman in it, and none of those characters come back.
Well, you hear John Goodman's voice in the credits.
But that's the size of it, and I've just come to expect that's not what they're going for. We're not going to follow Robert Downey Jr. through this whole series like you did with MCU, and it's just not that at all.
Yeah, it is what it is, I suppose. I'll just have to get used to it as well.
Or not if the series doesn't continue.
Yeah. But yeah, Monarch in this movie, almost nowhere to be seen.
I thought that as well.
Yeah. That was weird, right? Like they've essentially unleashed hell over the last few films, and they're like, head in the sand.
It would have made a lot more sense from a narrative perspective to set up Monarch from film 1 as a duplicitous entity, and then if they paid off in this climax being like, oh, they've created Mechagodzilla and that was their undoing, that would have been a good arc. But instead they just created Apex just as a villain, just a amorphous, like, oh, the corporate enemy. So I don't.
Odd.
But I thought that, like, especially as like Dr. Andrews and then Millie's dad, like they're both Monarch, and they don't communicate at any point. Like 2 branches of Monarch don't seem to be aware of what the other is doing or what is happening. So yeah, it's very low level.
bizarre.
Yeah.
Because that what's the dad's name? I forget now.
I don't know.
The dad. Like he's now. They said he's the director of Monarch as well.
That's quite the promotion, considering he was just like not involved with it at all.
Absolutely. It seems like this is something he should have been aware of as well. All of this. So, yeah, very very bizarre. So yeah, the monsters in this film. So obviously we've got 3, essentially, kind of
3 big ones, but there's some little ones as well.
Well, yeah, the little ones as well. But yeah, so like they've they said themselves, they set out from the start to make them characters, and we both agree they've succeeded on that front. They've really kind of doubled down on Kong being more empathetic and human-like,
emotional,
especially with like Gia communicating with him and things like that. Seeing him actually respond when he spoke to her, that was kind of like a bit of a moment for me. Seeing him actually communicate, that was really well done.
I don't think they've ever had Kong say anything in previous movies. He's communicated one way, like he blow dries the woman in the 76 Kong movie. She has a shower and he like blows on her. So that's a form of communication.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But yeah, having him say a word effectively was like, felt a much stronger connection to him as a character as a result.
Yeah, that was really good. And then you got the kind of, what I was going to say was like, the more sympathetic side of Godzilla, but this one had a very different feel to Godzilla, in my opinion.
It felt like they hadn't really decided if he was being provoked by Apex,
or if he was just being an arsehole.
Exactly, and I don't want to be too biased to my own predictions, because when we did our small episode on what we thought might happen in this movie, I felt like Godzilla would be being manipulated. And there were elements of that, especially in that first scene where Godzilla turned up and destroyed part of Apex. It looked like he was being driven to do it by some sound or some something being emitted to draw him nearer and attack, and his eyes glow and all that stuff. It makes it look like he's out of control and not aware.
The eyes glowing made it look like, I'm guessing that was because of Ghidorah's head.
Maybe, yeah.
It started being.
But then the head is in Hong Kong though. It's not in Florida, which is where the first thing.
Oh wait, of course, with the eyeball.
It just feels like there's remnants of a story idea that's not. It's still like there, but not fully formed. Because, like you say, when he attacks Kong on the ships in the first fight scene, he's doing that all just out of primal instinct. He wants to be the alpha, because his whole motivation is like, that's why they have Kong in the facility at the start, because they're trying to protect Kong from being murdered effectively, isn't it? So now he's out, Godzilla's more than happy to get involved.
Yeah, that first scene where he shows up and attacks Apex really reminded me of like Showa era films, where he would just turn up and then just blast the shit out of some facility somewhere. Lots of fire, and that was like old school Godzilla. I feel like that was intentional. Yeah,
it reminded me of the nighttime scene in is it Godzilla 2000, that one where he fights Organizer. I keep forgetting the names of all these movies.
Auger,
yeah. I know it's Auger, but that's Godzilla 2000 is the name of it, isn't it?
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah, that one opens with a nighttime like scene that's somewhat similar. And I think that this movie also did a lot of Godzilla close-ups, like of the face.
Yeah. Which
the other MonsterVerse movies haven't really done. And it reminded me a lot of Showa era, where they just like have in Showa, it's always like a close-up of a completely static costume that doesn't really have any emotion at all. But having a real intense close-up of both Kong and Godzilla, like from a framing perspective, it looked like they were deliberately referencing the style of the old movies. But that was really nice to connect you with them a bit.
Yeah, totally agree. And obviously we've got Kong as well. This actually felt like a Kong movie more than it felt like a shared thing, rather than it wasn't Godzilla and Kong, it was Kong featuring Godzilla.
Yeah, it really was, which is
to me was actually slightly disappointing. Being the big Godzilla fan, I don't feel like that. I look for that level of sympathy with Godzilla most of the time. Obviously there are some films like All Out Attack, where Godzilla's the bad guy, you just accept that. But this one, he's just, it seems like he's being an asshole for the majority of the film. And there's no real kind of, oh, he's not being an asshole. I mean, there is, but it's not really, they don't really play on that. And you're just kind of left thinking, well, we want Kong to win, really, because he's got to stop Godzilla being a dick. And it just felt like, it felt like a Kong film.
Well, I think it maybe come from a MonsterVerse thing where if you look at the 4 movies, Kong... Yeah,
we've had 2 Godzilla ones, now 2 Kong ones.
So that's maybe why that has happened. And also it's easy to have Kong be relatable and have that communication side because he's primate, so they can have him be more of a story character. But it did feel like, not that I think they should have inserted scenes of Godzilla arbitrarily, but I noticed, like you say, that he was not there as much.
Yeah.
But I thought the film survived that choice, definitely.
Yeah, definitely did. And then we've also got Mechagodzilla, or Mechaghidorah, whichever one we want to call it, I suppose, because, actually I'm kind of happy that it was related to the Ghidorah head, because I was like, I remember when we spoke about King of the Monsters back in 2019, I was like, oh, I hope Mechaghidorah shows up. They've got the head, they'll do it. So in a way, it happened.
I'm pretty sure I was not expecting it to come back ever again.
Yeah. I was quite happy to see that prediction kind of pay off a little bit. But actually seeing Mechagodzilla appear for the first time, even though I knew it was coming, it was still really exciting. Actually seeing him, unveil, and he sort of looked like a Terminator version of Godzilla. Like with the eyes and stuff like that. I guess that was the look they were going for. I'm not sure. But I've never seen Mechagodzilla look anything like this before. I don't know how to describe it, really. How would you describe it?
He was more... it was more... in the earlier Godzilla movies, it's more simplistic from a design perspective. It's more like a
Power Rangers kind of thing.
Yeah, obviously, predates Power Rangers, doesn't it? But that's where.
Power Rangers I'm saying, if you're going to liken it to something that's people can describe.
Of course, it's like that panelled suit, very polished, fully formed robot. Whereas this one, I think they went for a very purely villainous appearance.
Yeah,
where it's like this robot is unpleasant and industrial.
Yeah.
I didn't actually like the look that much, though, to be honest with you.
I liked how menacing he looked. You know what I mean? Like, he looked more threatening than Mechagodzilla looks. The Mechagodzilla we're used
to. The traditional one.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with that, but he looked too skinny. Like, it wasn't built up enough. He didn't, to me, look threatening enough, which he was threatening, because I know...
But he had red eyes.
Yes, red eyes. I loved the bit where he did, the rocket punch into Godzilla, and he was very, very intimidating when they got fighting. But I just didn't care for the look. And to be honest with you, I never really have. I don't love the look of the original Mechagodzilla. I don't feel like they've ever quite got it never got it quite perfect for me. It's a concept I like, having a robot, get involved. But my expectations were not. I didn't really have any for how he would, how he would appear. But then when he came on screen, I was just like, oh, is that what you're going with? Okay, fine.
They're restricted to having a robot lizard. There's only so many ways you can do it, really.
Well, I was wondering, actually, because I thought... I didn't actually look at any of the toys, although we knew Mechagodzilla was going to be in it. Yeah. But I wondered if, in a Muto style, that, MonsterVerse might be like, oh, here's our new character, and it would be some new, robot.
So it wouldn't be Godzilla?
Yeah, I wondered that was going to happen, but obviously not in the end.
Yeah, like Mecha Hedgehog.
Yeah.
I remember after King of the Monsters, I was like, I remember thinking, I don't remember if we spoke about it or not, but I remember thinking, is it going to work having a Mechagodzilla in a film? I couldn't really see it happening outside of, old school Godzilla films. I thought it'd be too wacky. But the way, I suppose, these fight scenes were done, it kind of, just with the whole movie in general, that whole just kind of insane vibe to it just fit right in, which is something I didn't actually expect to happen. So there's 3 there's 3 fights in this. Like you predicted there were going to be 3 fights. There were. So there's the first one that's on the boats in the water when Kong's being shipped to Antarctica. That was a great first fight because you see, I mean, Kong's essentially out of his depth. You know, he's out of practice. He's been he's he's been sedated, but he's still smart and quick. Considering he only had basically those 3 boats are essentially 3 planks to him to work on.
Yeah,
to fight Godzilla, and that was a great fight. That was really tense, especially once while he was chained up. And Lind had to, was it Lind, I think, did it? Released him from his chains so that he could then carry on fighting.
Yeah, when they were underwater and stuff. Yeah. You got a really nice sense of Kong's fear, which
Definitely.
we've said previously, Godzilla as a character does not really feel fear because there's no reason to. So having that dynamic between the two, that one is a threat and the other is like in a place of vulnerability, was really nice.
Yep.
And just for them to really think hard about how are we going to give audiences something they haven't seen before. And they could easily be like, oh, well, what cities have we not fought in? And leave it at that. But to put it out in the ocean on these boats, it was such a great idea.
Yeah.
One of the best fights, especially as far as the CG ones go. It was really dynamic. I thought the cinematography was so creative for that.
Yep.
It was great. The shot where one of the pilots takes off and you see like Kong in the background getting smaller.
Yes,
that was really good.
That was really good.
I thought we were going to get the whole thing I said where Kong was going to put a plane in Godzilla's mouth. Didn't quite. He did throw a plane at him.
Yeah, true.
But we did get the choke move later on in the movie, which we were hoping for. I'm sure everybody was happy about.
Yes. So there was the second fight that was in Hong Kong, the really colourful one, which I was looking forward to. That reminded me of when we used to play Godzilla Destroyer Monsters on the GameCube.
Yes.
It's just like that. Yeah, okay. It wasn't just me then. That's the one with the tree or axe in the mouth this time reference from King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah, it's nice and brief, but you feel like there are some real fans making this movie.
Yes.
When they put that in just for a split second, and it's like, yeah, this is good. And it goes back to Kong's character is that I was a little bit disappointed that he didn't make that axe himself, because I was sure he was going to tear something off of Godzilla and take that would have been quite a thing actually for a character to rip a piece of Godzilla off and show actually maybe they're more equal. But I think they really did overall go for a Godzilla it could best Kong easily. In the right situation, but then it's that thing where when Mecha comes, Kong saves Godzilla's life, so they sort of equal out in that way. I thought it showed some personality from Kong to be like, I've got this tool and I'll use it anyway, and sticking it in the mouth. Yeah, it's good.
And there's another reference as well with him stood on top of the skyscraper holding it, balancing off it the same way as
Kong style stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That fight, when Godzilla blasted the hole down to the center of the earth.
Oh yeah,
that was so ridiculous and great. I really like that.
I fucking love that. Yeah, it's just so dumb, but in the most committed way. This is a movie where not only have they got massive monsters fighting each other, but we're going to go to the center of the earth just on a whim. And also, Godzilla's going to blast a hole through the planet. This is all contained in one film. Oh, and there's also a robot like Kaiju as well.
Yeah, just absolute insanity.
Compared to 2014, it's this is on another level. Yeah. And this is really how they should have always been. It made this movie has its flaws, but you really get a lot of creativity from it, even more so over the other MonsterVerse movies in that way, just trying weird stuff and seeing what works, and pretty much all of it I think worked to some degree.
I think so. I initially thought he was going to do like in Shin Godzilla when he was firing down on the ground just to blow up the city. I thought that's what he was going to do, but then when we tweaked that it was actually drilling down into the earth, that was a nice surprise. It was nice to have full fights as well. There was when they did cut away, it was only when there was kind of a breather in the fight, or when they rested or paused or whatever.
Yeah, that's natural pacing to it.
Yeah, it was so nice to see, because I was just waiting for another shot, like in all of them, the door closing or a plane covering it or something like that.
And they didn't.
Yeah, none of that at all.
The first fight is at like 45 minutes in. There's a bit of a breather, but then from about the 1 hour mark to the very end, it's full on stuff happening. That there's some slow bits near the beginning, but yeah, once they get into the Hollow Earth and Maddie and her crew get to Hong Kong, it's full force and pretty much maintains that momentum until the end.
Yeah.
I think there was actually, we're talking about how many monsters there were in this movie. I think there was a little sneaky Manila cameo, in this.
Where?
When they go to the Hollow Earth,
yeah.
and Kong's like, when they first get to the Hollow Earth, there's quite a nice little fight scene where Kong like dispatches 2 like flying snake creatures, which I thought was a nice little pick me up whilst we're waiting for the real action.
Yeah, yeah.
And I like when they inject that sort of stuff. And then
very Kong-y. That was.
Yes, like actual 33 Kong sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then he's sort of galloping across like this rocky desert, and the humans are chasing him to go to this temple. And there's a scene where Godzilla pounds across the earth and it alerts these little crabs. I suppose they wouldn't be little, but there's these little crab creatures come out.
The little rock crabs.
Yeah, and then like a kind of a giant lizard dinosaur creature walks on and eats one of them. And his face, I've got a picture of it.
Oh yeah,
it's very.
I was wondering whether it'd be like Anguirus or something, Baragon or something. I don't know. But
he's got a very, very friendly face. This little character, very Manila reminiscent, and I'm just like, they probably would never do Manila in this because, and I know they've done Mechagodzilla, but that would be a bridge too far, probably a Son of Godzilla storyline.
I think the idea is that Godzilla's the last of his race.
Quite
the same way Kong is.
He's like, it's just like a nice. I think it was a possibly deliberate little fan reference, like, oh, this little monster's our version.
So, yeah, I don't know, maybe it's Manila? Who knows?
I like to think that it was.
Okay,
I bet this is the kind of question where if you ask the directors or producers, they'd probably be like, yeah, we definitely were doing that, even if they weren't. But it really looked like a sort of a Manila type to me. But I like that idea, actually, that in the Hollow Earth, the ecosystem or the food chain works, that like you have these massive creatures like Kong who would send vibrations through the ground and disrupt some little crab creatures, and then like a medium-sized kaiju like eats those things as they come up. And it's that realism. That was how Skull Island worked, where it showed you like, oh, there are creatures here who are big because stuff keeps coming out of this hole and sort of attacking them, so they've evolved to cope with it. And showing that this movie is dumb and stupid, and the story is maybe not that great really, but that there's some thought has gone into it. Like, oh, how does this actually work? Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, so, it is.
I like that a lot.
I like the whole Hollow Earth thing. I was quite excited to see what it actually looked like when they got down there, because I thought it was just going to be magma flowing and stuff like that. But yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, I was expecting it to be dark, at least, to the fact that there was like some kind of sun
some
inside
source of light in there. I guess there was some sort of orb of some kind in there.
I don't know.
Yeah, something like
with
that.
no atmosphere, I expect you would probably die fairly rapidly. But hey.
But yeah, it was cool. I like the way they kind of conveyed the changes of gravity down there as well. With there's those midway points where the rocks are floating between the two surfaces, and you get that bit where Kong jumps up, and it's kind of like replicating Michelangelo's creation of Adam. With the two fingers pointing across each other in the sky and stuff.
And is
like
that suggesting that at some point millions of years ago there was a Kong that size?
That's what I wonder, because there's a huge hand, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also when you saw the temple far off in the distance, which Kong eventually gets to, the outside shape of it looks like it could be a Godzilla shape, which means like maybe it's even the, fossilized corpse turned temple of a really ancient, really massive thing.
Because you do see quite a lot of fossilized stuff, like the fossilized Kong body there as well, and the other Godzilla skeleton as well. So yeah, who knows? There's all kinds of stuff that could happen down there. So thinking about their ancient rival, this ancient war that they've had, it's interesting because they're both the last of their kind, but these two, like this Godzilla and this Kong, they've never met before as far as we know. It's just a historical feud, so there's no actual kind of real reason for them to fight at this point,
other than Godzilla's hubris.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if it's kind of, calling out the pointlessness of it all, Like, they've grown up knowing that they're supposed to hate each other, but only because, it's kind of ingrained in them. Like soldiers in war, there's no personal rivalry there. It's just like an ingrained sense of duty. I don't know but then I'm guessing Godzilla must have faced previous Kongs. In fact,
potentially, yeah.
I'm pretty sure he did because of one of the comics, which we'll get into.
Yeah, I think it's like if you picture like a cat in a domestic environment, they have a territory and they do become aware of the smell and the presence of other cats and dislike that. And Godzilla is so huge and so singular that he is just somehow innately aware of the presence of Kong. It's nothing to do with Kong personally. It's just like, I don't like there being
purely territorial.
Yeah, it's a threat to my territory as the alpha titan. And Godzilla's hatred of Kong, innate, like instinctive hatred, I think was probably one of the strongest parts of the movie. I liked actually that it showed that Godzilla is being a bit of a bastard during this film and not really, being destructive, unbridled destruction the whole way through. But it helps you realise that in previous films, when Godzilla's killed off Mutos and killed off Ghidorah, he's never attacked humans directly, but it's only a secondary effect that he doesn't care about humans. He's not protecting them. He's just not attacking you because he doesn't see them as an issue at all.
Yeah.
So when humans come in the line of fire in this film, and people say, oh, Godzilla's behaving in a way that's unnatural, it's like, he isn't at all, really. It's just that this time his need to be the only one is suddenly affecting humans more directly than it used to be. And it's because of Apex and what they do, isn't it? So I feel like it is a side of him we haven't seen before as a character, but his personality hasn't been edited or changed, in my opinion. It's just that we're seeing a different perspective on it than we had before.
Yeah. So, Wingard said that there was going to be a definitive winner. And I had it in my head that the winner would be the one that didn't die. And I never really thought of it in in a kind of boxing kind of way. It's the one that can't fight anymore.
Right. Well, the poster says one will fall, which does suggest that somebody's going to die. But I mean, there's multiple ways of interpreting that. Exactly.
So when ultimately Godzilla won.
Definitely.
The fight between the two, which, I was happy about. I wanted him to win. The idea of Kong winning just seems so bizarre to me. And in King Kong versus Godzilla, there wasn't, it seems like Kong won because, they just assume that Godzilla's like, oh, maybe he's still alive somewhere. And then you see Kong still alive.
Well, it's just inconclusive, isn't it? It's not even that there is a winner. It's just that they just stop fighting in the film, basically ends in that one.
Yeah.
So,
but you could imply either way, I suppose. But I wonder if the takeaway was Kong won. But it was nice to get an actual winner. But he obviously wasn't going to die because that would just be crazy. They needed to take out Mechagodzilla. So, it was. They stuck to their word, so I was happy about that.
It would have made sense for Kong to be able to kill Godzilla, really, given the way they've established him and the differences between them. But they did actually manage to make it a convincing fight. Like, it didn't feel too one-sided. On the boat a little bit, but that just helped to develop the threat for the second fight. Because you knew, Godzilla nearly had this guy not that long ago. So now, it could be even more dangerous. So that works. For dramatic tension, it worked. So even though you knew basically Kong can't win this, but then you got the sort of somewhat humanistic conclusion, which is we'll compassionately we'll agree to disagree and go on. Living side by side. And hopefully, if they do a fifth movie, we'll get a more prolonged team. Sort of movie. Like, it sounds like so perverse to be like, oh, these kaiju are just going to team up like Avengers style or something.
A buddy movie.
But you kind of do want another one where they're like, oh, we're like siding, and there's a bigger threat, and we could have a prediction session at some point about what could happen next.
I have some ideas.
A fight scene inside the Hollow Earth with some low gravity
that'd be great.
It would potentially top the craziness of this film. But yeah, my favourite bit of the whole of the movie actually was probably the bit where Godzilla is just screaming in Kong's face for like 20 seconds solid. Just as like...
And then Kong screams back.
Yeah, and it's like, it's the closest you're going to get to a conversation between the two of them, basically.
Yeah.
And it's just Godzilla being like, can you just get the fuck out? I don't want anybody else here except for me.
Yep.
And I really liked that because it was like, yeah, like it's just a territory thing.
Yeah.
And the real, like the anger of it, like I just cannot abide Kong's presence.
Yes.
It was really strong.
And then like with Kong's response as well, because he's, you know, he's like so angry and pissed off and he knows he's lost and he's kind of like admitting defeat, but with like such a rage to it.
It's really good. And I think
very good.
This movie had so many high points from like a CG action perspective. So in my opinion, for the best bit to be a character moment shows that like it's not all just silly fireworks going off. There is some thought there. Depth might be a bit of an exaggeration, but there's definitely, you know, they care about these characters. Yeah. Whereas you watch some other CG driven films, Transformers namely, and like there's nothing really going on, which is always a shame when something like that happens. But yeah, this was an exception to that.
Yeah. It was a toss up between two moments. That was one of them. And then the other one for me was when Ghidorah took over Mechagodzilla behind, you know, Walt Simmons as he was giving his little speech.
Look like he's going to smash the...
Yeah, he turns around and looks at them. You know where I mean?
Yeah, because it's a very sort of... I don't know what you'd liken it to, but it's sort of like, oh, he's behind me, isn't he? Sort of scene.
Yeah.
Somewhat cliched, but they used it to maximum effect in this film.
Yeah, absolutely. It was funny. It told you everything you needed to know as well. So, yeah, it was those two moments. Yeah,
Millie Bobby Brown did a really good job of playing that completely straight because it is humorous and deliberately humorous. They want you to enjoy it, the death of the villain and all that. But like it would be easy to over-egg the pudding on that joke and not take it. You know, the slight edge of seriousness to it.
A bit too panto, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So it was a really good job. Really good.
It was good.
And there was a little girl. What was her name, the character's name?
Gia?
Yeah. Gia was really good. The actress who plays, you know, that child actor is... Her, like, sobbing at certain times, like, nearly got me.
Yeah, same.
It's just like... She's very talented at just crying on command, presumably.
Absolutely. Like when
her little face just getting so upset was like, you know... It's just upsetting to watch.
It really was. So, like, I suppose the biggest moment was when she touched the ground to feel his heartbeat.
Yeah,
it was a kind of a key scene there, I suppose.
And when they'd probably shown her like pre-visualization, animation, and concept art, but like I said about previous movies, like these actors aren't seeing.
Then reacting to nothing.
Exactly. Like,
how do really you do that?
Impressive. Like, so I thought all the acting, despite the material being pretty low effort, you know. From a scripting point of view, like the actors really worked it, I felt.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Did a fantastic job. Now I was a little bit gutted with the music. Wasn't bad, but I was disappointed not to hear any of Akira Ikufube's original themes, like Godzilla's theme. There was some points where it sounded like it was building to it, but then it never happened. I think that was the wrong choice. Like music by Junkie XL, who honestly I've not actually listened to any of his stuff before.
I recognise that name.
I recognise it by name, but like I wouldn't be able to tell you anything.
I think when I played DJ Hero back in our uni days, there might have been some Junkie XL on there.
Okay.
I liked it. I think maybe they were holding the Godzilla theme back because that's his hero theme. And they didn't want to conflate his heroic stuff with his like more villainous edge. I quite liked the music, but it was strongest in the boat fight scene. That was really good. And then when they got to the Hong Kong stuff, there were so many sound effects and stuff that the music just didn't seem to really matter anymore.
The boat scene was the one where it felt like it's building to one of his original theme, and that's why I thought it was coming. But yeah, it didn't happen. I don't know. It wasn't. There was nothing memorable to latch onto, nothing particularly identifying either character. I don't know.
Yeah, it had the kind of like just the amorphous music problem. There's so many modern movies go for the mood thing that we talked about previously.
Yeah.
But I did like the music in that boat scene. I think it had a nice kind of drive to
it had Requiem again as well. I think that was used. Yeah, it sounded very similar at least. Maybe that's the kind of thing he was going for, blending it in with whatever he was doing. Sound design was good as well. I mean, not much to say. It was, fit for purpose, really good.
It would have been nice to hear it in a full cinema.
Yeah, it would have been, especially when they went through the vortex to the Hollow Earth, and you kind of hear that kind of gated, distorted screaming as they went through. And the sound design when we, hear what Gia's hearing. Obviously, she's deaf. So she can only pick up on vibrations. So they kind of, drop everything to like low frequencies, and you're just kind of hearing vibrations. So if you're watching this at home and you haven't got very good speakers, you might not hear anything. But there are big low frequencies happening there, which, make it, feel like the ground's moving kind of thing, which was, again, it's one of those moments that's designed for cinema, really. But yeah, really well done. So yeah, as usual, could newcomers come to this? I would say no, because I feel like you need to watch Kong Skull Island and King of the Monsters before you see this to really get the full impact. Not to say that you couldn't, but you're going to get a better film out of it if you've seen both of those first.
Yeah,
really. I mean, would you agree? Disagree? What do you reckon?
It's a bit of both, I think, because you kind of do need to understand Kong a little bit. I know he gets a lot of screen time in this movie, and they do establish him as a character, but spending time with him on Skull Island and understanding what Skull Island is, simple concepts, sure, but like having seen that movie would help. And then, King of Monsters is a better way to be introduced to Godzilla than 2014, really. So it's nice to have seen that, and for the Ghidorah head. But having said that, I watched this with my fiance, who's seen 2014
and Kong, right?
And Skull Island, but not King of Monsters. And after the movie, we talked about it a bit, and she asked me some questions, basically saying like, "Oh, well, was this in King of Monsters, or is this something I've missed from a previous movie?" And the questions she asked me were like, "No," because there are things like we talked about in this podcast, how like characters pop up out of nowhere and replace other people, and
She messaged me asking the same thing.
That's the thing. So while she was aware she'd missed a movie, the questions she had would not have been answered by seeing it. So yes, you kind of should watch Skull Island and King of Monsters before seeing this, but you could just watch this as the first movie. And if you're just willing to accept, like, oh, these are pre-existing characters and we're just going to go for it, especially if you tell somebody like, look, the second half of this 2-hour movie is basically non-stop action. If that's what they're interested in, like, go for it. But it's kind of an indictment of the Monsterverse that it still fails to really feel important to follow it, which is a shame. Some of these Marvel movies, which I often reference, you could accidentally wander into one and not realize that it's part of it sometimes, and be completely in the dark. Whereas with at least with the Monsterverse, that's not the case, and you kind of can start from anywhere if you want to, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
I would say this is easily my favourite of the Monsterverse ones, and maybe give it a bit of time and a couple of watches, probably my favourite Godzilla movie overall. You seem a little bit cooler on it because you want more of that story, like that more connectivity that's just not there. That's
the thing, and more of the sympathy for Godzilla for me as well. Those are the only two parts of this that let it down for me. But I mean, don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved this. I thought it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed every second of it. There was no point when I was bored. When there's anticipation for each fight, it pays off every time. Yeah. And the humans were tolerable. Imagine that.
It really it paid you the respect to know that, like, we're going to give you the modicum of realism you need to suspend your disbelief and enjoy this as a story. But when they start fighting, we're going to watch them fight.
Yes.
This is what we've been wanting for years. And really, even if you include all of the previous Godzilla movies from the very beginning, this is the first one where they really were like, we're just going to have a fight that lasts a good 25 minutes here.
Yeah.
And they've never really done it before. God knows why. But they finally were like, oh yeah, this is what you want.
Taken 60 years to get it right.
It's amazing that they've actually waited 60 years from the previous King Kong versus Godzilla movie. Like, it's been almost that long before they redid it. I don't think we'll be waiting that long again to see Kong versus Godzilla. But I don't know. I now I've seen this one, I think I'd like to see them do a fifth one, a big finale.
Yeah.
I don't know if it just has enough momentum as a business.
This is the thing. Like, it kind of hangs in the balance with this film, I think, because I read that the license for Toho has expired now, and everything, like all the plans were geared to this film. This was kind of like, this is our end point.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens after this. So for them to even consider making another one, this has to do really well. I mean, so far, it seems like it's done really well, probably beyond expectations.
If I'm not mistaken, I think King Kong versus Godzilla, the original 63 one, is still the most successful Godzilla movie in Japan. So this one might get that nostalgia feeling. If it's big in Japan, which it probably will be, I don't think they can go to the cinema there, but at home, maybe Toho, sure. maybe Toho will see the potential there.
I really hope so. Because it kind of made me a bit nervous because there was no post-credit scene. Yeah, and this whole kind of, well, we'll see if it does well. I don't know. It left me a bit antsy. I know you thought this might be the end of the Monsterverse. It's funny because actually I think our opinions have sort of not changed, but our expectations about what might happen have flipped a little bit.
I guess
I was like, of course they'll do more.
Right.
But now I'm a bit like, there's signs that they might not, and there's a chance that they might not. Whereas you're kind of now feeling more like, I want another one now, rather than, if it ends, it ends.
Yeah, my desire to see more has changed because I was expecting this to be good, but not great. I thought, they'll do the King of Monsters thing again. We'll see lots of humans gasping at, chopped up fights, but it'll be enjoyable. But it's so good. I wish it could have had a cinema run, because I think if they had the word of mouth to go and see it in the theatres, it might actually make enough money for them to do more, which would have been nice. So yeah, I still expect they won't, but yeah, I have a greater kind of desire to see it than I did.
Yeah,
it's a shame, really.
Yeah. But yeah, absolutely solid, fantastic film. Yeah, if you know anyone that wants to get into them, like we're saying, get them to watch Kong, King of the Monsters first, and then this one. But I mean, yeah, you're good to go, really. Brilliant film, really, really, really good. Yeah, so thumbs up from us.
Exactly.
On that one.
Yeah, there's no ambiguity. It gives you exactly what you want. So it's not like it's the greatest movie ever made or anything. But in terms of the kaiju fight movie, I would expect this it would be a while before they top this in any regard, I think, honestly.
Yeah. Okay, so there are two tie-in comics to this film. So Legendary Comics kindly gave me a couple of review copies for. So yeah, I can't go too far into spoilers because they're not out yet. I think initially they were planned to be released before the film, but I don't know, things changed, so now it's coming out after. But so there are two. There's Godzilla Dominion and Kingdom Kong. So Godzilla Dominion acts as a sequel to King of the Monsters, where we follow Godzilla's exploits, and then Kingdom Kong is a sequel to Skull Island: Birth of Kong, the comic.
Oh, okay.
Where we see Kong's journey. So Godzilla Dominion, the first one. This was written by Greg Keyes, who wrote the novelization of King of the Monsters and the upcoming Godzilla vs. Kong novelization as well. And art by Drew Edward Johnson and colors by Alan Pasalacqua. I think that's how you pronounce it. So I can't really give a blow-by-blow account for it, but I'll give you the gist. So ever since Emma Russell resurrected Ghidorah, and he's awakened all the Titans at once, they've been battling for the remaining resources on Earth.
Because there wasn't really a factor in the movie, to be fair.
No, it was kind of hinted at, like when you go to Pensacola and Maddie goes up to her dad there. They're at that camp.
Yeah, they're sort of excavating some remains of some thing.
Is that what they do? It looked to me like there was it looked like there was kind of destruction. I guess it was after the Apex thing. I guess they're kind of relief around the planet.
Who knows?
Yeah, not really sure. So yeah, the Titans are battling for the remaining resources, and Godzilla doesn't have a resting place anymore ever since Serizawa blew it up in King of the Monsters to revive him.
Goodness sake! No wonder he's angry in this movie.
Right? This is the thing. So yeah, he's just roaming the planet now, trying to find a resting place while keeping the other Titans in check, and it's all from his point of view, basically. So you see some of his memories as well, like when Mothra sacrificed herself for him to regenerate him, and you see flashbacks of Serizawa as well when he rejuvenated him and blew up his house. But then so then Godzilla went back to that civilization that once was down there, just to, I suppose, see what's going on now. Yeah, and it's been overrun with these like piranha-like creatures and this giant piranha titan that came from the Hollow Earth. So basically, when Serizawa blew it up, it blew open a barrier to the Hollow Earth. So he can't stay there, so he keeps looking around, and then he can't find any good place because of this ancient rivalry with Kong's race. So they seem to have ruled the roost and sent Godzilla packing, essentially. So yeah, I kind of thought the same as you. Like, I assumed he might be turning on man because of everything that happened in this book, essentially, because there's one point where he finds this tentacle titan called Nakika ensnared in this mesh by Monarch, and it looks like Monarch's trying to subdue all the titans and trying to maintain control because of all the hell that's been unleashed. And
somewhat
that's just
foolish plan, really.
Yeah, really.
I guess they kind of succeeded in doing that in the past, though, to be fair.
What, subduing the Titans?
To some degree. I mean, until 2014, nobody knew there was Titans, really. So they must have been doing something.
Yeah, I suppose so. Well, they were kind of just maintaining their secret rather than... Yeah.
This Monarch, I don't think much of them, I've got to say.
Yeah, exactly. So it seems to be Dr. Russell that screwed everything up more than anything, with unleashing Ghidorah. So
bad move.
Yeah, such a bad move. So it's throwing everything out of whack. So it's kind of this, I suppose, it's a bit of a man versus nature dynamic we're seeing, but from nature's point of view. And of course, in the film he's mad at Mechagodzilla as well, so he's got a lot to deal with. So they tease this ancient rivalry with Kong, as we kind of explore more in the film, but they barely scratch the surface of it in this book, which I would like to have seen more of. All we know is that they didn't get along, but you don't really find out why. So I think it's there just to kind of build tension for the film. It's like, oh, why are they mad at each other? Go watch the movie to find out. But seeing as everyone's probably going to read this after they've watched the film, maybe it counteracts that. I'm not sure. But its biggest strength for me is for the fact that it makes up for the lack of sympathy we're supposed to be feeling for Godzilla in the film.
Oh, because he's a wanderer now, and
he's exhausted. He's pissed off. He's alone, and that was the key moment, I think, for me, missing from the film.
I see. Right.
They explored more of that in this.
How many dorsal fins out of 10 you give it?
This one, I would say an 8, because it's a super fast, easy read. There's no dialogue. It's just captions to support the artwork. So it's basically like 80 pages of really nice Godzilla pictures with some story to back it up. So can't complain.
Sits along the ambitions of the movie quite well then, by choosing its focus very astutely.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And it's not weighed down with any of the human element here either. So you're in safe hands. And the fact that Greg Keyes, who's writing the novelizations as well, he's got a keen understanding of everything that's happening in these films as well. So that I think that's really services it quite well. So yeah, is a really good read. Absolutely worth it. And then we also have Kingdom Kong. So this is following Kong, unsurprisingly. So here's a tip. Listen to the Kong Skull Island score while you're reading it.
Oh.
I think that really adds to it, in my opinion. That's what I did because it was kind of noisy around here. So I was like, put my headphones on. I was like, what shall I listen to? That fit really well. So, so right out of the gate, we have some setup for this Hollow Earth theory, and that there are several gates all around the planet, and one of them is on Skull Island, and that they discovered it in 2012. So it seems as though at the end of Birth of Kong, when Houston was in Birth of Kong, the comic, I mean, when Houston was implying about going back to Skull Island to get his son Aaron, that's when they also discovered the gateway, with the cave/gateway, and set up camp there.
So how come they don't use that gateway in the movie?
Can't go too much into it.
Okay.
So
you can read to find out.
Yeah, exactly. So we're introduced to this flight team who are tasked by Houston Brooks and Nathan Lind with flying into the Hollow Earth after the excavation team managed to drill through it. So presumably this is all prior to Lind's brother's death, because for starters he's still in Monarch at this point, and they're still trying to send pilots down there. But obviously when Lind's brother tried going down there, he died. Another bad move. God, these guys suck. So while they're waiting for this cave to open up, they undergo training on the island by having to survive amongst the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where we get to see a lot more Kong, which is nice, because one of my grievances with Birth of Kong was...
I love Kong.
Yeah, it was like we had build up to... There's one particular moment where there's build up to a fight, and then it all happened off panel. But,
classic Gareth Edwards. Really on point.
But I mean, this time it's like no holds barred, so that was great.
Okay, cool. Again, they obviously maybe had a remit from the studio or some overarching producer being like, we want to put Kong and Godzilla center stage here.
I mean, because they might have been thinking, well, this is potentially our last shot.
Yeah,
let's do this. So yeah. We see the team encounter some familiar Titans. You get a Mother Longlegs, as well as some new ones too, like this one called a Spirit Tiger.
Oh.
It looks pretty cool. And
maybe like a Caesar reference potentially.
No, it's like a tiger with antlers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not quite the same. And for the most part, we're following this pilot named Audrey and how she's dealing with her past encounter with a particular Titan on this island, and how that battle had left her flight partner in a coma. So her backstory, it does tie into the events that unfold on the island and about her overcoming her demons, so to speak. I really liked her character, actually, and I was hoping she would be in Godzilla vs. Kong. She reminded me of Akane from Godzilla Against Mechagodzilla, if I'm going to keep the similarities, amongst the Godzilla universe.
I see.
She's kind of a bit of an outsider pilot.
Right.
To fight up the kaijus, whatever. And she
oh, yes.
Yeah. So she could have easily slotted in as one of the cast for the film.
Yeah, you need a pilot to fly one of these ships that does the zero G nonsense.
Yeah, exactly. So, but obviously she doesn't turn up in it. But at the same time as all this, we've got Houston Brooks on the island, and he's talking about about returning Kong to where he's supposed to be, and that he's outgrown the island. And I always assumed Kongs were there as guardians of the entryway. I thought that was the whole idea, but then obviously we learned that they're from the Hollow Earth. That's where they're supposed to be in the film. So,
well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you see this big fossilized hand in the Hollow Earth in the movie, and then obviously from the air, Skull Island looks like the head of a skeleton, a skull. So, would you theorize that maybe at some point in ancient history, a huge Kong came to the Earth's surface and died, and that Skull Island is actually a literal skull potentially.
Why not?
Why not?
Why
That's
not?
what this franchise is all about.
Exactly. Yeah, actually, the more I thought about that giant hand in the Hollow Earth, I wonder if that was just a sculpture, because they've got a Kong sculpture in the cathedral thing.
But again,
but
take it any way you like, really, can't you?
Theorize. It's fun. Yeah, so I don't know if I can go into too much detail about why they will have to leave the island.
Probably best not.
But it has something to do with the events of King of the Monsters and how it plays into what's happening on the island. Mm-hmm. And Brooks kind of holds himself responsible for basically letting it happen. They got them now. They need to make the best of a bad situation, and you hear in Godzilla vs Kong actually Eileen Andrews, Dr. Andrews, talking about like a storm that wiped out the EU.
Yeah, that's how the little girl ended up deaf and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so this is it's based on this comic basically. So that's a reference to this book. It ties into the events of Godzilla vs Kong. But then, it kind of rounds off this particular arc. It doesn't leave any loose threads. It's mostly self-contained, which is nice. I feel like this one acted as a better prequel than Godzilla Dominion. It kind of made use of the events from King of the Monsters more.
It sounds like one is a character piece and one is more to do with the universe of the franchise. So.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And we get to see that Spirit Tiger, which was a scrap Titan from Kong Skull Island.
Oh, right.
So, yeah, it's nice to see that resurface in some way. I was disappointed not to see any even mention of Aaron Brooks from Birth of Kong. If we don't find out any more about what happened to him, whether he's alive or not. Like I said, like when I spoke briefly about Aftershock, Godzilla Aftershock, they kind of hinted that maybe he might be alive, but then also maybe he's dead. It doesn't clear it up either way. I think he's probably dead and forgotten about, so maybe that's why he's not been mentioned. So yeah, there's no more on him, there's no more on San Lin. It's just, Houston Brooks remaining now. So that to me was a slightly disappointing, because I was expecting more of that, considering it was a sequel to Birth of Kong. So never mind.
You'd expect a character continuation, so that's a strange choice.
Yeah.
But it speaks to the overall character dichotomy of the series, so...
Yeah, I suppose so. But I suppose, the main feature was Houston Brooks, I guess, with this as well. So nice to see him again, because he didn't show up in the film. So yeah, you got art by Zid, who did the art for Birth of Kong. So you got this kind of detailed, semi-realistic digital paint look that it had in the first book.
Oh, right.
So it's more of the same. It looks good. Written by Marie Anello. I don't think I've read anything else by her. I don't recognize her name, actually. But yeah, it was good. I'll certainly keep my eye out on anything else she's doing. I did enjoy this. Hopefully if there's another Monsterverse book or another Kong book, they can get her back on board and maybe pick up where these characters left off. That'd be nice. Well,
yeah, there's still going to be that Skull Island. Is it Skull Island?
Yeah, the
TV show.
TV show, yeah. So
maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. This story had a lot more attention to it than any of the other books, I felt, in this series, I suppose we can call it so far, in the Monsterverse books. It felt more like comfortable in its own skin, if that kind of makes sense. Like
maybe hit their stride a little bit with these.
Yeah, exactly. They've it could be because they got more lore to build off of now, because we're like 4 movies and 5 comics deep into the Monsterverse now. So yeah, they're really finding their feet. It'd be nice to see it branch off and away from the films now. Like I feel like we've done the tie-in thing. Let's let it become its own beast, and the films and the books in future, if there are any, can dip in and out of each other if they want to.
If there's any way for them to explore the ancient history of this supposed conflict in the Hollow Earth with this ancient tribe and all the kaijus that may or may not have been, it'll be through the comic books, I'm sure. So
yeah,
they may as well just reach out in any given direction. Now they don't have to be stuck to the movies if they don't want to be.
Absolutely, yeah, it's rife for that kind of stuff. So that'd be great.
That's the kind of thing I would be more interested in reading, actually. Like, these movie tie-ins are good. I'm glad you enjoy them. But to me, yeah, something that's really like something I'm not getting from the films in any way would be more enticing, but at a personal level.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Totally fair criticism. And I think with comics as well, I mean, it kind of fills the gaps between films. You know, if you're wanting more, you know, these are, you know, great snacks between the main meals that are the films, I suppose. So let's, you know, pick up on the Hollow Earth, this ancient rivalry. Let's see some of that. Do whatever you like. You know, you can do some really good stuff with that. There is still that air of awareness that the books are supplementary reading for the films.
Yeah, so it's a form of promotion ultimately.
In a way, yeah. So I mean, don't expect a fully rounded off story, self-contained book. These are prequels, and they are billed as such. You know, there's no pretense there whatsoever. You're
expected to watch the movie. It's not a standalone thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's all part of the same thing. So, so I mean, by that nature, you don't really need to read the other Monsterverse books. But if you were so inclined, then I would say read Skull Island: Birth of Kong, because that's got the strongest continuity so far throughout the Monsterverse with the books. And then you're good to go straight into Godzilla vs. Kong.
Kingdom Kong, though, how many skeleton heads out of 10 you give it?
Oh, I would say, while it is the strongest, I think part of me enjoyed Dominion a little bit more, just for, as you were saying, you know, the kind of characterization of Godzilla.
Is this one maybe all business, not quite so artistic as that one?
Yes, yeah, definitely. So I would say 7. It was good. It's well written, and was the strongest one so far. So I would take that into account rather than my score. This is the strongest Monsterverse book yet.
Monsterverse specifically.
Yes, specifically. So. Yeah, I mean, maybe it'll have a different feel to it as well if you read these after seeing the film, because
that's going to be most people's perception, isn't it?
Yeah. So I don't know if, I don't know what my opinion would have been doing it the other way around.
Well, in some ways, that's quite nice, because you could have watched the film, had one perception of Godzilla and his character arc, and then read Dominion, and then the second time you see the movie, it changes things, and that's always a fun. Yeah, you know, novelty with these kind of things.
Yeah, because I kind of expected them to. I mean, as I've already said, basically, you know, I was expecting them to build on this kind of pissed off, isolated Godzilla a little bit more in the film, and I think that may have been something to do with the comic. Maybe, you know, I expected that, so maybe that's why I felt like the film was lacking in that regard because of this.
Having heard you go into detail on that point, I think that would have really enhanced the movie. But having watched the film without any knowledge of the comic, I didn't feel an absence at the time.
Yeah.
So it's just a perspective thing, potentially. Yeah. But we also have different tastes with these films, I think.
Yeah.
The modern ones, you know, specifically, with all the eras, actually, I think, you know, everybody has different expectations or things they want to draw from it.
Yeah.
You've always gotten very deep into the, you know, is this a workable universe, as they so call it?
Yeah.
Whereas I've always just been happy if it's a serviceable movie, basically. And that's why this recent film really blew my expectations away, because I wasn't expecting it to be anything more than that. So the fact that it was, you know, so good was very exciting. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, these books tie in perfectly. A great for Godzilla vs. Kong as an all-round package for the Monsterverse, and even as a send-off if this is the last one. Please don't let it be the last one. You know, I think this is a great complete package. So yeah, thrilled thrilled with the outcome. So actually, big thank you to Legendary Comics for providing us those, and also to Warner Brothers, who gave us an invite to the virtual premiere of the film. So we got to see it at the same time as everyone else. But that was very, very nice of them.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, very grateful. Nice treat.
Yeah, a nice token. So thank you very much. Right. So I suppose that covers it. Ooh, this is a long one. Is there anything else we want to add, or should we wrap this up?
I just think it's both the best chance this series has had to continue, but if it is the last one, they've ended on the strongest possible note as well. So,
yeah,
I hope there's more. I'm sure there'll be more modern Godzilla movies within our lifetime, without a doubt.
Yes, yeah.
But yes, I think should this be the last one, then it's ended wonderfully.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Toho have planned to do a World of Godzilla, their own, cinematic universe anyway. So
and then there's that anime one we saw the trailer for recently.
Yeah, Singular Point. So
it's really good.
It does, yeah. So there's lots more content coming. There's still MonsterVerse stuff coming as well, with the Kong animated series,
which we'll talk about.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, there's still more on the horizon. So let's see. So I guess that's about it. Okay, so where can the people find you, Graham?
I do a similar thing to this, but for video games, called Fossil Arcade. If you go online and type in Fossil Arcade, have at it. What about you?
So if you want to see my drawings, I'm Ben MR Hall on Instagram and Twitter. This podcast has a Twitter, and it's Monster Island RP, and the Instagram is Monster Island Radio. And if you want to see, we're on YouTube as well, and Spotify. I mean, if you're listening to this, you're listening to us on one of those platforms, so I don't really need to advertise those in any way.
Congrats for finding it. And
yeah, well done.
Thanks.
Yeah, we're Monster Island Radio everywhere, basically. So you'll find us. So yeah, thank you everyone. Thanks for listening. I don't know what we'll talk about next, but hopefully it won't be too long till we're talking about something.
Show up, maybe? Who knows?
Well, yeah. I mean, it makes sense for us to maybe talk about King Kong versus Godzilla.
Possibly, at least in the near future.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, let's see. So until the next episode, everyone. Bye.
Bye.